everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thunderstruck, our look back at the career of Jushin Thunder Liger, as told by myself, W.H. Park, and each and every unique standalone guest on this show, who are the people who end up picking these matches that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the greatest matches of Jushin Thunder Liger's career, the most kind of historical, I guess, noteworthy matches of his career as well. And this might fall into that latter category. It is an episode that I've been very excited to do because my guest today. I'm very excited. He is a very, very prolific podcaster talking about pro wrestling, talking about television shows, comic books, politics, and quote unquote real sports. He is a pillar here at postwrestling.com, but it's my first time ever talking to him. He is Nate Milton. Nate, how are you, sir?
It's like thunder all through the night. Promised to see Jesus in the morning light. They said, take my hand, it'll be all right. Come on, save your soul tonight. What is going on, W.H. Park? It is good to finally be talking to you, my brother.
Wow, that's awesome. Like, I think you're the first person to ever do like a sermon on this show or anything I've ever done. So like already this is the greatest episode I ever recorded.
You get Jushin Thunder Liger, put it together with some Prince, and it's a wonderful evening.
If only WCW did that instead of the generic quote unquote Oriental music that they would use for all their Japanese talent.
Oh man, yes, but yeah, you're right. The WH, this is the first time we've ever had the chance to speak to each other, not just in podcasts, but in life, in actual vocal form, and not just through text on the internet, man. So thank you for the invitation, man. I've been waiting for this for a while.
I think you're like the last person on my bucket list, at least as far as like post wrestling goes. You know, it's like, okay, talk to John multiple times, talk to Wei multiple times, Braden, Davey. Who else is left? Martin Bushby at BWE, Benno, Jamesy. Who else is Nate Milton? Jesus, I got to talk to Nate Milton. Oh my God. Okay, you got to get your contact info from Wei because I didn't have your contact info. And then yeah, it's like great. You agreed, and here we are. I'm very, very excited because I think we could talk about not only Jushin Thunder Liger, but we share a lot of hobbies. Like I'm a big comic book fan. I'm a big like movie fan. I love Star Wars, all that stuff. But also our shared interest in the wild world of professional wrestling, Nate.
Yes, so you finally filled out your post-wrestling bingo card. You punched out all the holes, and I think now that means John Pollock owes you a free sandwich.
I'll take a Reuben on toasted, please, and big 2 pickles, please, dill. You know, and people who don't like dill pickles, you're all crazy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Okay, so there you go. But you are a very prolific podcaster, as I said. Let's talk about. We'll get the plugs at the end of the show. But I do want people to know your background as a podcaster. Like you talk about professional wrestling, you talk about movies and everything. But let people know what is the world of Nate Milton like.
Well, the world of Nate Milton, Brother Park, is a wondrous world filled with podcasts and football broadcasts and radio shows, and it feels like if I'm not asleep or eating, there's a microphone in front of my face, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective on life. But yeah, I've been broadcasting for over 20 years. Started in Newport News, Virginia, calling high school football games, something I still do to this day. And then, that experience led me to podcasting, which kind of launched the Kings of Sport podcast, featuring myself and Marcus Vanderberg. And the relationship with John Pollock and Wei Ting, who, as you know, are jam-up guys, as Bret Hart would say. The relationship with them from pre-post and now on post wrestling, doing the Rocky Maivia picture show. It's been a fun ride. It's something I didn't expect to do, quite frankly, is get into podcasting, but I'm glad that I did, and I probably wish I would have gotten in earlier, man, because it's fun. It's time consuming, and scheduling guests, as you know, can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but being able to talk with interesting people about sports or movies or pro wrestling, it's really fun and interesting getting different opinions from people. And, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Because like we all, even though we have differences, we all can share in these things involving sports and pop culture. And I think that's what the best podcasts can do, is they can kind of create community.
I have to say, like one thing I really love about the work that you do is that you are a black voice in the world of professional wrestling.
Wait, what?
You're
black. I'm black?
Well, according to your Skype picture, you are. But no, like for
it's
me,
like the reverse Dave Chappelle black white supremacist. When he found out he was black.
That's a blind character. He
was a blind white supremacist played by Dave Chappelle, who finally found out that he was black, and he's like, "Oh no, I've been black this whole time, Jasper."
That is a great character. Dave Chappelle, a very awesome comedian. But
yes.
like for me, like it is a world, like the world of, discourse about professional wrestling is very much dominated by like white voices. I like nothing wrong with that, but it's like for me as an Asian person, like I want to hear people's opinions who like more align with my experiences growing up. So for me, talking with Wei is great. Listening to Wei is great. So, but also I want to hear the other voices that I don't normally hear. I want to hear the experience of you as an African American man, like what you think about these things that happen in professional wrestling. For example, like, the whole Kofi, title win and like his subsequent loss to Brock Lesnar, things like, the recent situation as of this recording with Jim Cornette on NWA Power, things like that. Those are interesting to me because like, there's one way of looking at it and then there's another way of looking at it. And I want to kind of hear all those different viewpoints. So it's refreshing to hear like you on Post Wrestling and on your own podcasting network as well.
Well, thank you, brother. And it's something that I do kind of take, I don't want to say seriously or like it's a responsibility, because at the end of the day, we just talking, but I do keep that in mind. It is something I'm aware of. It's something I'm cognizant of, in that there are not a lot of people that look like me on platforms that speak about wrestling to the fans out there and to the listeners out there. And so it's something I'm very appreciative of to John and Wei for allowing me to have a Rocky Maivia picture show and to do the shows that I did with Brian Mann previous to that. And so what I want to do is take advantage of the opportunity and give you guys and girls my perspective on wrestling and my perspective on life, which might be a little bit different than yours. It's not coming from the usual perspective of somebody that's a white guy. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of great shows out there that are hosted by Caucasian brothers, but I want to expand the tent, and that's one of the things when we started the Nubian Wrestling Advocates podcast over at the Kings of Sport Patreon. That's one of the things I wanted to do, WH, is have a place where black voices could get together, where, Latino voices could come on the show in the future, Asian voices come on the show, people from the LGBT community could come on the show, people that don't usually get that platform, don't usually get that space to speak. I wanted that show to kind of be, just a round table for different voices. And it's not to say that we're excluding white voices, but it's to say, yeah, these white voices in wrestling media and wrestling journalism are great, but that's not the only story. That's not the only perspective. And I think that's one of the best things we can do with podcasts is give somebody that lives a million miles away the perspective of if they were sitting right here next to you.
So this is maybe a first in podcasting. I have Nate Milton, a prominent voice in the African American community in wrestling podcasting. I was born in South Korea. I grew up in Toronto. I live in Japan now, and we're going to talk about a guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, taking on a guy from Tokyo, wrestling in the Mall of America. How unique is that? Are these stars ever gonna align like this, Nate? I don't know. I don't think so.
Right there is the beauty of wrestling, that all of these things can come together and enjoy the very same match. So yeah, this is one of the things, man, I loved about WCW back in the day. And we'll get into this once we talk about the match, WH. But the fact that they had so many different guys, and granted, they were usually all undercard guys. But they did have so many different guys on the roster that you got a nice mix of styles and personalities. And so, yeah, this is, like you said off the top, this might not be one of Liger's greatest matches, but it certainly, to me, is one of his most important matches and a match that I still remember very vividly to this day.
Yeah, so before we get to the actual match, which I'll let you introduce and give background on, let's talk about Jushin Thunder Liger. He is, he's coming up on the last year of his career. He's going to retire on January 5th, 2020 at the Tokyo Dome. That's going to be his last ever match. And then he's going to have his retirement ceremony the next day on January 6th at Oda City Gymnasium at New Year's Dash, a show that, like myself, John and Wei are lucky to be able to get tickets to. So we're going to be excited to watch that, and I'm going to try to keep John from talking about Rusev cuck angles during his retirement ceremony. He's threatened to do that, on the Rewinder Raw, I think. So, but we'll not go too deep into that topic, anyways. But Nate, what does Jushin Thunder Liger mean to you as a wrestling fan?
Jushin Thunder Liger to me is one of the guys that, in my opinion, broke a barrier for North American or Western wrestling fans, I guess. He's very much in the same vein as somebody like a Conan or Eddie Guerrero were for Mexican wrestlers. That's how I look at guys like the Great Muta and Jushin Thunder Liger. They were probably, I'd say, most of the audience listening that's either in the United States or Canada. Liger was probably one of the first Japanese wrestlers that you saw on TV. Unless you were somebody that was really big into New Japan or All Japan and you were into the tape trading scene, Liger or Muta was probably the first example of a non-stereotypical Japanese wrestler. Even though Muta did play in the stereotypes a little bit, they weren't, the guys carrying salt in their pockets. You know what I mean? Like, these were legitimate athletes and they were presented as such. And so I think they were the gateway. Like, if you dug what Liger was doing, then that would lead you, like, I got to check out what else is going on in Japan. Let me read my Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine and find out if they've got anything in there about other Japanese wrestlers besides Liger that I can get into. So I think Liger is very important. Unfortunately, I don't think he's the biggest star, or as big a star as he could have been, just because I don't know if North American wrestling companies, even to this day, really know how to market Asian workers to their audience. But I think given the confines of the time, Liger is certainly, if you ask any wrestling fan over the age of 20 or 25, I don't know, the age ranges of your audience, but if you ask anybody over the age of 25, who's your favorite Japanese wrestler? Who's the guy that got you interested in Japanese wrestling? If it's not Muta, chances are it's going to be Liger.
Over the age of 25, or, between the ages of 25 and 30, people might say Kenny Omega, and I'd be like, what? but anyways, one thing I will say, like, when I first saw Liger, believe it or not, it was on WCW television. I was like, who is this guy? For me, really? the best source of, like, finding out about, like, Japanese stuff was in the pages of Inside Wrestling, which was a Stanley Weston publication, which was in the Aftermag family.
Yep.
But because this is an awesome aspect of Inside Wrestling, was they had the roll call of all the champions across the world. So I'm like, what? All Japan? Who's the PWF Tag Team Champions is the Road Warriors? What? Oh, who's the Triple Crown champion? Stan Hansen? What? This is where Stan Hansen is? I love that guy. So that for me was like, okay, then I see names like Fujinami and Choshu and Muda and Hashimoto, and then later on Masawa, Kawada, Kobashi, all them people. And then it's like, wow, but then I start tape trading and I'm like, oh my God, I recognize these names from Inside Wrestling. I gotta order that one. I'm gonna order that one. It's Eddie Guerrero. That's Black Tiger 2. Oh my God, I can order that match and things like that. So for me, like the Aftermags, especially Inside Wrestling, were such a great resource of, like, just learning names, learning.
Like people get the Aftermags flack these days, but man, pre-internet, pre-social media, like that, they were the deal. Like you're saying, Inside Wrestling, or when you turn to the back, and my favorite thing, WH, was to turn to the back and look at the top 10 rankings from all around the world.
I love those stuff. And I also in PWI, the centerfold. Love the centerfold.
Yes. Yeah, like the Aftermags were a very important part of being a wrestling fan back then, because yes, okay, it's not hard-hitting journalism, but it didn't have to be, because it was educating us about a sport and giving us, pretty pictures of all these wrestlers from all around the world. And so, yeah, man, you can't, discredit the Aftermags. You got to put some respect on Bill Apter's name.
Hey, lots of love to Stu Sachs. You know what I'm saying? Great writer over at PWI and the other After Vags. But let's talk about the match that we're going to discuss today. Nate, which Jushin Liger match did you pick for Thunderstruck?
Yes, well, I think the listeners might already know. We've given them a lot of context clues, or they just read the description in their podcast player. But we are going to go. We're going to go all the way back. We're going all the way back to 1995 to the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota, WH, because we're going to check out Jushin Liger versus Brian Pillman on the first edition of WCW Nitro.
Yes, and it's the first match of this
very first match.
So why did you pick this match? And let's give a bit of background between like the history of like Brian Pillman and Jushin Liger, because this is not their first meeting.
Yeah, and for anybody that is a dedicated listener to Thunderstruck knows that you and Emily had previously talked about a Jushin Liger match with Brian Pillman.
Yes, Emily Pratt and I talked about Jushin Liger's match with Brian Pillman, an awesome match, by the way, from Super Brawl 2. This match takes place several years later. Brian Pillman has kind of changed. He doesn't wear the orange Bengal tiger striped tights anymore, which is a shame. I love that look of Brian Pillman, but he's gone through the Hollywood Blondes phase of his career. He's just, I think this is pre-Four Horsemen with him and Benoit joining the Horsemen with Arn and Flair. So he's kind of like, it's wearing like all these tassels on his tights.
Yes,
funny.
a lot of tassels, a lot of fringes. But yeah, the reason I chose this match, WH, is because I think that not only is this match significant in terms of wrestling history, being the first match on Monday Nitro, but I also think that it's significant to give a little credit to Eric Bischoff and WCW, which I know, like I did a whole show with Brian Mann called Keep It 2000, where we crapped on WCW management. But when credit is earned, credit must be given, WH. And I think one of the things that Bischoff brought to the table was bringing in some of the guys from Mexico, bringing in some of the stars from Japan, and giving you this menagerie. That's not even the word I want to use. This mosaic. That's a little bit better, of wrestlers from all around the world. And I love, like, when I first watched this match back in 95, I was already in for WCW. I grew up watching the NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions, so I was already down for WCW. But when Nitro debuted, WH, it was like, yeah, I have to be there. And so when the first match that comes on is Jushin Liger versus Brian Pillman instead of, Hulk Hogan, like, they easily could have opened the show with Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage or somebody like that, but they went with Pillman and Liger, and so that really stuck with me.
I think it's significant in the mindset of, like, one Eric Bischoff, that he had this relationship that he fostered with New Japan Pro Wrestling that existed before him, like with, under the tenure of people like Jim Herd and Bill Watts before him. But he really took advantage of this as like, okay, I'm going to bring guys over here. And he would send people over to Japan, especially in the heyday of the NWO. He would send like Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton, and they would be integral members of NWO.
How is that a fair trade? Buff Bagwell for Jushin Thunder Liger. That's not a good deal, Eric.
No. Listen, I will not have slander of the amazing tag team that was vicious and delicious. A tag team, I think, very underrated. If you watch their matches in Japan, they worked very well. Those two actually complemented each other very, very well. Like, I would say Scott Norton was Buff Bagwell's like best partner since Too Cold Scorpio, which was a great tag team in and of itself.
Yeah. I did like Vicious and Delicious. I always thought Bagwell was a really, really good tag wrestler that was elevated past his level of talent as a singles guy.
Well, in the ring, he wasn't a singles guy. He was much better as a tag wrestler. He should have stuck with Norton, but like character-wise, he fit really well with Scott Steiner's Big Papa Pump character. But I felt just like he accentuated like all the things that Scott Norton is not good at, which is promos. And then Scott Norton accentuated he was kind of his heat guy, right? So like they worked really well together. If you watch their matches, their tag matches in Japan, there's some really low key, like hidden gem stuff, happening in that period. But like getting back to the main point is like that Bischoff recognized, okay, I got this, access to all these guys. So I'm going to bring in Jushin Liger. Okay. I saw this match between Liger and another guy I have, Pillman, who's like a great wrestler. Let's jumpstart this. And is this the head-to-head time period with them against Raw?
This one would have been, I don't know if this was the head-to-head or if this was when they had the hour advantage. This might have been when they had the hour advantage. When they started they started a little bit earlier than Raw.
Okay, so they're just trying to get like that, get eyes on their product.
And if I'm wrong, somebody will fact check me, and I'll tell them to direct their fact checking to WH Park.
Yeah,
this is his show.
Just at me. Don't bother this gentleman. Just at me, and I don't know. So you can subsequently tweet me and say I'm wrong, and then I'm just gonna mute you, and you can just scream into the ether, and I'll be laughing at that. So it's okay, no problem, Nate. Just direct it all towards me. I know how to deal with the quote unquote Twitter troglodytes, as Mauro Ranallo would say.
I love muting people. Side note, I never block anybody. Unless you go to a certain level, you really cross the boundaries with me on Twitter, I'm not gonna block. I'm not gonna block you. I'll just mute you because I'm trying. Why would I get rid of you and lower my follower numbers? That hurts me. So I'm just gonna mute you, and you can rant and rave all you want, but I don't have to hear it, and my numbers stay up. So it's a win-win.
I love the idea that these people are screaming into the void at me, and I'm not aware of it. I'm blissfully ignorant of it all. I like the idea that possibly someone say TK Orion is yelling at me, but I don't know because I muted him because he's an idiot. So, anyways, I don't want to talk about this. These are all these tangents. We're gonna do a lot of tangents maybe on this show, Nate, but yes. It's okay. It's an entertaining discussion. But this match emanates from the Mall of America, the home of Hulk Hogan's pasta restaurant.
Yeah, Pasta Mania, brother.
I saw these kids eating it. I'm just how much did you pay these kids? Seriously, because that looks like utter shit. I would not eat that if I was the last person on earth and there was no more food left, no more canned food on earth. I would not eat this Hulk Hogan pasta shit.
Yeah, WCW had bad luck with restaurants. First Pasta Mania, and then they had the WCW Cafe that nobody went to.
Was it as bad as WWF New York?
Oh, see, I never went to WWF New York. I wish I would have just for the experience. But yeah, I think WCW Cafe was basically Planet Hollywood, but instead of statues of Stallone or Schwarzenegger or Denzel, there were statues of Buff Bagwell and Alex Wright.
Buff Bagwell versus Denzel Washington. There's no contest. It's Denzel all the way, brother. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Equalizer. First one's great. Second one's meh, But anyways, I want to say, WWF New York, I went there one time when I was visiting Manhattan, and it was shit. No wonder it went out of business. It was a terrible place to go. All of you thinking, I wish I went there. You trust me. You're lucky you didn't. It's overpriced, really bad food, terrible service. But anyways, let's get to this match. We start off with Jushin Liger coming in with, as we talked before a bit, maybe off the air, his generic Asian music, which is just chime, the wind chimes, the flutes, the kind of what they thought was popular in Japan as far as popular music was, with kind of the beats they were using. I was you got an agreement with New Japan. Just use his fucking theme, please.
Yes. Or just and this is maybe more of a complaint today than back then, because I don't know if J-pop or K-pop was as popular then as it is now. But if I were a wrestling company, if I'm AEW, instead of having generic songs for my Asian workers, I would send BTS a check. Fellas, hook me up with a hot beat. So I can play this new act out, instead of going the route of wind chimes and flutes, because flute. How is that supposed to get me hyped up for this match? You coming out here with some flute music.
Look at Io Shirai. She uses Poppy. That's great. It's it's not generic at all. It fits her character. Perfect. You don't draw attention. Oh, she's from Japan. Oh, okay, Liger, he's from Japan. Let's just use the same music we use for Kensuke Sasaki. Let's use the same music we use for fucking Akira Hokuto. No. Just, it's everyone comes out with fucking Sonny Ono. Why?
Yes.
Why are they all coming? Oh, because he's Eric Bischoff's karate buddy, and and Eric Bischoff is Mr. Nepotism in professional wrestling in the 1990s.
Hey, without Eric Bischoff, we don't get Sonny Ono, we don't get Ernest the Cat Miller. We don't. There's a lot of people that we don't.
I will take Ernest Miller because low key, Ernest Miller was fucking awesome. Like those kicks he would do. That guy. Like, listen, if they booked a Jerry Flynn versus Ernest the Cat Miller 7-match series on Nitro, I would have watched the shit out of that. Let me tell you.
See, that's what I'm saying. You got to take the good with the bad. For every Ernest Miller, there's a Sonny Ono, and that's life.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Sonny Ono. Got the discrimination suit. Got paid. Good for him. You know.
Yeah, Sonny got paid twice. He got paid from the original contract, then he hit him with the discrimination lawsuit. So Sonny did something right.
Yeah, I'm all about like hitting like pro wrestling companies with discrimination lawsuits because they're probably accurate, to be quite honest with you. But
yes,
let's get to the match. We start off with both men trading arm lock twists.
Wait. Before we get to the match, okay. WH. Do you want to talk about our commentary team? Because I have issues.
We'll get to them. Don't worry. They're in my notes. We'll get to them.
Okay.
Too. No problem. We are going to go off on this commentary team. Believe you me. Okay, so the match starts with both men trading arm lock twists. Liger shoots Pillman into the corner and hits a capo kick right in the head, right off in the first 5 minutes of this match. And on commentary is one Eazy-E, Eric Bischoff, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Steve Mongo McMichael, who may or may not be one of the worst color commentators of all time, Nate. What do you want to say about this commentary team?
Oh, Mongo is terrible. Mongo is one of the worst. And I know, like, for everybody else, they probably hate hearing Mongo, but as a broadcaster, it grates on me even more hearing this dude call this match. And like, I think one of the first things out of Mongo's mouth when Liger's coming to the ring is like, he's like, well, let's hope this guy didn't bring a Ginsu knife over. And I'm like, Mongo, sir, please. Like, this is how we're starting off, sir.
Listen, it's 1995, cancel culture, or as I like to call it, I don't like the word cancel culture, consequence culture is not formed yet, right? So, like, yeah.
I like that. I'm going to steal that, consequence culture.
Yeah, I think that's way better. It's like cancel means like there's a negative connotation to people being called out for the bullshit they do. It's like they're now facing the consequences of what they do. And like, yeah, Mongo McMichael, like, we'll get to him. Don't worry, I've got lots of notes about this fool. But he is like typical. It's not like he's not saying things that Bobby the Brain Heenan wouldn't be saying, right? Not things like that fucking Jerry Lawler wouldn't be saying over on Raw,
The Jim Cornette.
Or Jim Cornette, or even, let's be honest, like Jim Ross, right? Like Jim Ross is guilty of saying, like, these gentlemen are from the Far East and the Orient. Just say it's fucking Japan, dude. Like, what the hell? He's saying it now in 2019. They're from the Orient. Oh, fuck. Please. They're Japanese. They're not all from one fucking region, Jim Ross.
Yes, just one big region on the map. It's just one big block.
The Orient. Doesn't say that on your atlas. Anyways, we'll get back to McMichael here. But back to the match. Pillman sends Liger back into the corner where he runs up the ropes and hits Pillman with a moonsault body press. Just right off the bat. Liger knows he's only got a limited time frame. He's getting to get all his shit in, Nate.
Yep. Yeah, they worked at a really quick pace starting off. And the thing that I noticed, because I went back and watched this match, as well as I watched the match that you guys talked about earlier from 92 with Liger and Pillman, just to kind of compare and contrast. And the one thing that I noticed, the crowd was into this from the beginning. Like, they were hot for all of this stuff early with Liger and Pillman. And so I think that just made the match, to me, come off so much better at the start.
I think there's years of watching Brian Pillman and becoming familiar with his character. And I believe he just turned babyface at this time. He broke up with Steve Austin previously. Yeah. So there's, the fans are invested more in Pillman than they are in Liger. But I think they probably, a lot of these like long-term fans, the adult fans in the audience are familiar with Liger, because not only did he do the Super Brawl match with Pillman, but they teamed up together in the NWA Tag Team Title Tournament, and like they fought guys like Nikita and Steamboat, and like a bunch of other people, and I loved their team in that tournament, mate.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things I thought about when I was watching this match, and not just because they both had like the matching red in their outfits, but I thought, man, how great would it have been if they were able to work something out, maybe on a more permanent basis, where Liger could have been in WCW more, and him and Pillman could have been a really great tag team at that time.
Oh, definitely. These guys had so much amazing chemistry with one another. But back to the match. Like I have to make a note that our referee is Nick Patrick and his mullet. Just a beautiful thing of beauty, this mullet, Nate.
I mean, it wouldn't be an episode of WCW without referee Nick Patrick. So I was glad to see that he was here for this first match on Nitro.
Pillman turns the tide of the match with a head scissors takedown. Pillman continues the assault with knife edge chops to Liger in the corner. Pillman tries for a jumping Frankensteiner and completely botches it. Fortunately for him, this match is not taking place in Philadelphia, so you're not going to get the Philadelphia faithful chanting "You fucked up" on national television.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about that was Bobby the Brain, like trying to halfway cover, but not really. He's like, yeah, he didn't get that move at all, Eric, but he tried. He just didn't get enough.
Yeah, it's
like,
fine.
Okay.
He covered for it the best he could. That's fine. Liger drops Pillman with a drop toe hold and applies the Romero special to a big pop from the crowd. So this audience is, like you're saying, Nate, they're familiar with Liger and they're into the stuff that he's doing.
And to Bischoff's credit, like Bischoff to me was the star of this commentary team in this match. Bischoff was putting over huge the submission maneuver because he's like, this is one of Jushin Liger's best moves. Nobody executes this submission better than Liger. So even if I as a viewer am not educated on this, Eric Bischoff telling me, yes, this is what this guy does. This is one of his patented maneuvers. It makes me interested and it gets me like, oh, he could beat Brian Pillman right now. So I thought there was a good job by Bischoff to kind of convey that to the TV audience as well.
That's really, good job. I have in my notes just a bit of history because this match is going to be going kind of short, but I thought I'd tell people the history of the Romero special. It was a move invented by Mexican wrestler Rito Romero. And
I that's my bad because I thought it was invented by Cesar Romero back in 1966 on the set of Batman because, Burt Ward was getting into the craft services and Cesar Romero had to put a move on him to get him away from the food. So I got bad information. That's my fault.
It's okay. A lot of people make that mistake. Cesar Romero, the Joker with the painted over mustache. It's an easy mistake to make.
Look, the greatest Joker. Don't at me, Joaquin Phoenix fans, because I'll just put you on mute.
Oh, listen, let's just go on a side about that movie. That is a good movie. It's a great homage to Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver and the King of Comedy. That's what it is. It's not a superhero movie. There's no superhero in this movie, okay? It's just, it's a psychological, study of a man descending into madness over the course of 2 hours. And it's a great film, great performance. But that's not the Joker. The Joker is Cesar Romero. Joaquin Phoenix does a hell of a job with it. I'm not taking anything away from him. He did a great job in that film, and I thought the film was very well made. But yes, you're right. If I'm a DC Comics fan looking for my Joker, that's not my Joker. Nah, for me, it's like you're saying, because I grew up with the Batman TV show, the Adam West Ward show, and Cesar Romero is a big influence. Berg's Meredith, that's the Penguin, great. But for me, I have to say, Heath Ledger is the.
Oh yeah, Heath Ledger was great. Jack Nicholson dancing to Prince music. That was great back in '89.
Hey, that doesn't age well. That Burton movie doesn't age well. I've tried to watch it and I'm like, this is shit. I don't know why people like this Batman movie so much. It's just a Tim Burton movie that has Batman characters in it. No, it's fucking Beetlejuice with pointy ears. That's what that
Beetlejuice with pointy ears and Prince music.
That's right, exactly. That soundtrack is great, by the way. I'm a big fan of Prince. It's one of my favorite Prince albums, up there with Purple Rain. It's an amazing album. But anyways, Liger's own innovation to this move, invented by Rito Romero, is to transition into applying a dragon sleeper on his opponent while they're in this move, and it's just so vicious looking. First time I watched him do this, that the transition into the dragon sleeper, I just popped. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna kill him, and I thought it was gonna be a finish, but actually this move is actually one of his many transition moves, Nate.
Man, I think it's funny because I don't know. I don't know, who do we credit with these moves? Do we credit the originator or do we credit the innovator? Because let's think of a move like the Scorpion Deathlock or the Sharpshooter, if you will.
Yeah, like
Sting and Bret Hart didn't come up with that move.
No, I forget exactly who invented it, but it was a Japanese wrestler who invented it.
Yes, it was a Japanese dude. But when you think about those moves, you think probably most people think Bret Hart, and then if you're from the South, you think Sting. And so it's like, yeah, these dudes are going to get credit for kind of popularizing the move, but they didn't do it. They didn't start it.
Here's the thing: like Sting would never take credit for inventing that move.
No, Sting's a humble man.
But Bret Hart would. I invented this move. It's like I don't get me wrong. I love Bret Hart. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But some of the ludicrous things that come out of his mouth. I invented the sharpshooter. Like I don't know why you're telling some Japanese guy invented it. It's like saying when like he did the Canada versus USA angle. He said, "There's no racism in Canada." Excuse me. I beg to differ, Bret, because like I'm not white and I grew up in Canada, so there is racism in Canada. Like he is right that we have great healthcare. That is a good point about Canada, but to say there's no racism in Canada, no. Anyways, Rob Ford, Doug Ford, let's talk about them. But anyways, let's move on. But he doesn't do the Dragon Sleeper variation on Pillman. No. And I wrote in my notes, it's probably because if he did that, it would probably melt the minds of the WCW faithful in this audience because they'd never seen a move that awesome before.
That's another guy. The stream of consciousness, you bringing up the Dragon Sleeper, that's probably the third guy I would say that kind of popularized, Japanese wrestling to me was Ultimo.
Yeah, Ultimo Dragon, awesome, yeah.
Because Ultimo was like so cool back in the day. Like, he seemed like the coolest dude in the universe until he got to the WWE, but that's a story for another day.
we will not talk about Ultimo Dragon's tenure in the WWE where Stephanie McMahon wanted to unmask him because she thought he was really cute. But anyways, Pillman reverses Tilt-A-Whirl backbreaker into another head scissors takedown. Pillman charges at Liger, who sends him over the top rope. Good thing Bill Watts isn't in charge anymore of WCW because that would have been a DQ. And he follows up with a somersault plancha running off the ring apron. Just a beautiful move that's like, kind of like a hallmark in professional wrestling matches in this day and age.
I think that's what I liked about this match, WH, is that, yes, you knew we were going to get some high-flying spots. You knew we were going to get some technical wrestling on the mat. But I like that we went outside, and it wasn't gratuitous, like a lot of matches today, where we'll just go outside and it's not part of the story. It's just, as Brian Mann would say during one of our Nitro 2000 reviews, it's just a lot of brawling around the ring. That was my Brian Mann impression.
Wonderful.
Crawling around the ring. But yeah, I liked it. The times that we did go outside, it actually meant something and furthered the match.
Yeah, at this point, there's a wonderful jigonistic chant of USA breaking out because, of course it does. It's 1995 in an American wrestling promotion.
To be fair, you are in the Mall of America, so, I mean, Pillman's got home field advantage.
It's true. It's fair enough. You know what always boggled my mind when I'd be going to a show in Canada and the chant of USA would break out. I'm like, no, we're kind of in the wrong country for that. What have you ever heard in your long history of watching wrestling, Nate? Have you ever heard the chant of Canada break out?
I've never heard a chant of Canada. I've never heard a chant of Mexico, Japan.
No, it's always
only USA.
Only USA, and it would happen in like Toronto, in Calgary, in Montreal, and I'd be just like scratching my head. But wait, you are all Canadians. Pretty much everyone in this audience is Canadian. Why are you chanting USA?
To be fair, though, we do have the most chantable country name in America. USA, 3 letters. It's easy. You can even somebody without rhythm can stay on beat. Whereas if you're a country like Canada, that's too many syllables. If you're a country with initials like, the Soviet Union back in the day, you can't chant USSR. That's not a good rhythm for a wrestling chant. So USA is like the perfect mix of symbolism and nationalism, and it's got a chant that you can say on beat. WH, that's why it remains to this day.
I like the word jigonism because professional wrestling is, if nothing else, built on jigonism.
The foundation of this business is built on stereotypes and caricatures. Definitely.
But hey, you know what? Thanks to Drake, maybe shows in Toronto we can chant 416 because that's the area code. And Drake has made that popular. But anyways, let's move on back to the match. Pillman suplexes Liger out of the ring to the floor. Pillman goes to the top turnbuckle and hits Liger with a diving body press, just showing off his own amazing aerial repertoire. Liger blocks Pillman on the top rope and hits an avalanche superplex. It gets a 1, 2. Oh, only a 2. And now we're kind of building to the crescendo of the match here, Nate.
Yeah, I really like kind of the final third of this match because it was both guys kind of going for these big moves, these higher risk moves to try to put away the other guy. And Bischoff, again, to his credit, is telling the story about how these guys complement each other, how these guys know each other so well. And so I thought that part of the story worked. I wish there was a button on the WWE Network where you could turn off certain commentary channels, because I would have just liked to hear Eric Bischoff and then maybe add Mike Tenay to this match, because that would have made it so much better.
Oh, definitely. Mike Tenay would have known everything, but he would have got made fun of by Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone. What's that? It's a dragging screw leg whip. Oh, what was that? Because if they would make fun of, Mike Tenay for knowing the names of all these moves. From here.
Yes. Why is Mike Tenay? Why are you so dumb learning about things that could actually enhance your broadcast?
Oh, you know who it was? It was Heenan and Dusty Rhodes who would make fun of Mike Tenay, not Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone has some respect. I love Tony Schiavone, historically and right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony Schiavone might be the best announcer in wrestling today. I love Tony Schiavone.
It's him. It's him for Southern wrestling, like the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions. It's him and Bob Caudle that I fucking love as commentators, because they add this credibility to it. And early Jim Ross, WCW Jim Ross is great, and early WWE WWF Jim Ross is really good. I'm not such a big fan of Jim Ross these days, but anyways, we're another tangent that we can get off. But back to the match. Let's see, where am I? Liger goes to the top and goes for a dive, but Pillman catches him with a beautiful midair drop kick. One of my favorite moves from Pillman. And he goes for the 1, 2, kick out. So now we're just getting to the false finishes. The heat is building up in this match. Liger hits a powerbomb, and I love Liger's powerbomb, but he only gets a close 2 on Pillman with this move, Nate.
And the crowd is so into it right now. The crowd is biting on all of these finishes. Going back to the drop kick, like you said, that's one of Pillman's signature spots. He doesn't quite have the lift that he used to have in his younger days back in the late 80s, but he still got it pretty good. And I loved it. Again, going back to the commentary, Bischoff's for most guys, a drop kick is an offensive maneuver. But for Brian Pillman, he uses that as a defensive maneuver to take down his opponent. I'm you know what? That's actually some really sound broadcasting right there, Eric Bischoff. So again, tip my cap to Eazy-E. But yes, you're right, man. The way that they're kind of ramping things up to build to the finish has been really good.
Yeah, Liger hits another top rope Frankensteiner for another close 2 count. Pillman follows up with a tornado DDT for his own 2 count. And here, Steve Mongo McMichael makes an amazing analysis that Liger must have survived the DDT because he has padding in his mask. And Nate, I got to ask you, what was McMichael worse at, being a wrestler or being a commentator?
Being a commentator by far.
Really?
Because I think at least as a wrestler, he can throw a punch. He can body slam somebody. He can, he can muddle his way through a wrestling match. There was no muddling his way through this commentary, especially, and I know a lot of people love Bobby the Brain Heenan, and I do too. But I think Bobby the Brain Heenan was not the guy to have if you were going to have Mongo McMichael as well in the 3-man booth.
Oh,
because
it should have been today.
The name calling and the Bobby the Stain, Bobby the Hernia, and then Bobby going back at Mongo. To me, it took away from the match.
I think Bobby Heenan, I always get the feeling Bobby Heenan is not going to go too far because he probably thinks that, McMichael's probably so green at being in the business of professional wrestling that if Bobby the Brain Heenan said anything really going off on him, that McMichael would probably take it personally and try to go after him. Legit.
Yeah. I wish, if you've got to have Mongo, because I think you can have one or the other. So if you've got to have Mongo, I don't think you can work with Bobby. So if Mongo is the guy, I would go Eric Mongo and Mike Tenay, because Mike Tenay can counterbalance Mongo or even Tony Schiavone. But if you're going to keep Heenan, then I would have Eric, Heenan, and maybe, again, Mike Tenay. Maybe this is just a backdoor pilot to try to work Mike Tenay in on these Nitros that can't happen because they've already occurred 20 years ago. But still, I think the only saving grace for me, WH, with Mongo McMichael, and I've never admitted this on a show before, so I'm giving you an exclusive here on Thunderstruck, brother. The only thing that I can say positively about Mongo McMichael is all those years I spent watching Nitro growing up must have worked itself into my subconscious, because even though I know the word is pronounced athlete, whenever I'm doing a broadcast, I pronounce it athlete, like Mongo McMichael. And I think that's all because of watching Mongo on these Nitros. So I guess I owe Mongo that for giving my broadcast a little style.
Oh, well, hey, everyone, you heard it here first on Thunderstruck. The origin of Nate Milton pronouncing athlete comes from Steve Mongo McMichael, the worst commentator / wrestler in the history of professional wrestling. I'll be honest, I think he was worse as a wrestler because I have seen the atrocities that he committed in that ring with like being like what's the term, like green as grass. This guy was like a double shade of like Brazilian rainforest green, like the grass there. Like forget your fucking lawns in Florida. He was like as green as like the deepest, darkest parts of the Amazon rainforest. That's how bad he was as a professional wrestler. But anyways, let's go back to the match. Liger goes for a German suplex, but Pillman shifts his weight forward, rolls through, and gets the 1, 2, 3 on Jushin Thunder Liger. A flash pin in 6 minutes and 52 seconds, which, my listeners might not believe that this match was only like 7 minutes, essentially, due to the length of time that we've been talking, Nate.
That is crazy. Like we've literally talked about this match for about 30 minutes longer than the match occurred. So, but here's the thing, man. I really love this finish. I think they did something a bit similar in the match from '92, where it was kind of like Pillman outsmarting Liger, and then they did the respect angle afterwards. And so I felt like this was a bit of a callback. And yeah, it just showed, man, these guys have such good chemistry. I wish they would have done more with these two, whether as a tag team or putting them in more matches in the early days of Nitro. But because of the historical context and because you got two great workers, I really enjoyed this. Even with Mongo McMichael on commentary, he was not enough to rain on my parade here at the Mall of America.
Well, we end the match, and we're going to end the match review with this gem from Steve Mongo McMichael. He says that if the fans didn't tune in to this match, they didn't see a match worth watching. And what? The fuck? That doesn't make any sense. This man is a certifiable moron. I will say that right now. And if Steve McMichael, if you happen to be listening to this podcast, which I doubt, but if you do, I'm sure you're a nice fellow and everything, but you are a moron when it comes to professional wrestling commentating, okay? Like, if fans didn't tune in to see this match, then they didn't see a match worth watching. Like, of course they didn't, because they didn't fucking see it. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, I rant over, but I just think, Nate, like, imagine if this was a 2-hour Nitro. Imagine if they launched with 2 hours and this match was like 15 minutes long and covered 2 segments. My God, how great would it have been?
Well, first of all, getting back to your man Steve McMichael's here, I mean, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt because Mongo only pawn in Game of Life. Shout out to everybody that watched Blazing Saddles and got that reference.
I have not seen Blazing Saddles in like maybe 25 years, Nate. But now I
love Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I'm a big Mel Brooks fan too. Like Blazing Saddles is like, you watch that movie, it's like, wow, it is very I don't know how challenging. I think to a lot of
it could not get made today.
No, it would never be made. Like I think most Mel Brooks movies wouldn't get made today. Like
yeah.
What is it? History of the World, which is a great film, by the way. That would definitely not get made today. But yeah, check it out. Blazing Saddles, an amazing film. But yeah, this I like this.
But I think getting to your point of this could be like longer. Of course it could, but I will give them credit given what was going on with WCW at the time, right? We're smack dab in the midst of trying to compete with the WWF. We're smack dab in the middle of Hogan just running over everything and bringing in his cronies that added nothing or very little to the show. People like Earthquake and folks of that nature. And it's nothing against Earthquake as a man. I just didn't need to see him on my WCW TV as a fan back in the day. And so the fact that Eric Bischoff was able to carve out 6 or 7 minutes of time on this show on TNT, on the Turner Network, to showcase a dude from New Japan that's not even really in the company and Brian Pillman, I thought that it was really cool for that to be the first match of WCW Nitro, and for that to be, where Eric Bischoff kind of put the focus to start the show.
Excellent point. Yes, I have to agree with you. Like, they did the best they could with this, these time constraints, and it's still a very fun match to watch.
I mean, we had to save time for Lex Luger to show up in a Puffy Seinfeld shirt, baby.
That's right. Lex Luger and his shirt made their surprise appearance, made history. Jumping from the WWF into WCW on the first edition of Nitro, and Sting being very conflicted. Is my best friend. Look at that shirt. Why would I be friends with this guy? But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed the storyline of Sting and Lex Luger at this time in WCW. But final thoughts on Liger's career. Like, we're gonna wrap it up. What would you like to see maybe as his last match? I'm not sure if you follow New Japan too closely these days. You're very busy and stuff. But if you had a choice of Liger's last match, what would you like to see, Nate?
I mean, I don't know how good of a match this would be, but I think, something involving Liger and Muta, maybe in a tag, would be kind of cool. Just because, I love both of those guys so much. I got a lot of respect for Liger, and Muta probably is the guy that, got me interested in Japanese wrestling, at least to the level that I am. I'm by no means an expert, but I do check out New Japan from time to time. I was big into Joshi back in the day. Like, I loved Ayako Hamada and Ozaki. I thought she was tremendous as a heel. And so I might not have seen these performers, right? Like, I might not have ever gotten to the point where I'm watching Nakamura in New Japan, or where I'm watching Okada in New Japan, or Ibushi, if it weren't for people like Muta and, of course, people like Jushin Thunder Liger. So I know, just knowing kind of, and I think you alluded to it on some of the previous shows, how smart this guy is and how unselfish he is and how he just wants to put on a good show. I think he'll have something great planned. Like I said, I'd love it to involve the great Muta. I'd love for Keiji Muto to get some shine. Maybe, since we just did this show, maybe they can do a tag with Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman's kid against Great Muta and Kota Ibushi. How about that? Book it.
Sure, that would be a veritable test of the awesomeness of one Kota Ibushi if we had those two participants along with Liger in that match. But no, I like the idea of these kind of historical aspects of Liger's career, like Brian Pillman's son, Brian Pillman Jr., and the Great Muta. For me,
shout out to Brian Pillman Jr. I really like that guy. And it's not just because of I was a big fan of his dad, but it's I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to be the son of somebody famous. We're seeing Cody Rhodes had to find his own identity. Somebody like a Jungle Boy, had to find his own identity in the entertainment world. And so I respect Brian Pillman Jr. So I think, it's not going to happen. But just for me, being the WCW mark that I am and the Brian Pillman mark that I am, I think that'd be a neat little Easter egg.
No, it would be. I think there's some validity to what you're saying as from your perspective as a WCW fan. For me, I'm hoping it's either Hiromu Takahashi or Will Ospreay in that match on the 5th, because I think both those guys could just have an epic way to close out the in-ring career of Jushin.
Okay. So I'll meet you halfway. Okay, so we're gonna do Muta and Ospreay versus Brian Pillman Jr. and Jushin Liger. Book it. We have spoken.
Okay, as long as the 90% of the match is Ospreay and Liger in the wrist. Yeah, and then no offense to Brian Pillman Jr., but as long as he's still on the ring and Muta is just doing missed spots constantly on the apron, that's fine with me. But Nate, I really want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to do Thunderstruck with me. I had an awesome time. I'm hoping we can do something again in the future, maybe on a future series that I'm going to be doing for Post Wrestling. It's a secret series. I just got it approved, and it's going to debut sometime in 2020. But I'd like to have you on that in the future as well. But where can people find more of Nate Milton?
Well, I will respectfully decline your invitation to Buff Talk because I've had enough Buff Bagwell discussions for one day, WH. So if you want to do a Buff Bagwell podcast, more power to you. I just won't be involved with that, brother.
Okay, I'll get your former co-host Brian Mann on.
Yeah.
On that show.
Brian Mann would be down for some Buff Talk.
And Big Papa Pump, the podcast. We're going to maybe do that in the future here at postwrestling.com as well. But where can people find Nate Milton?
You can find me on Twitter if I haven't muted you, or even if I have muted you, you can still find me on Twitter at @8 MOZAIK at Nate Mosaic. Of course, I've got the Kings of Sport podcast with myself and Marcus Vanderberg from Yahoo Sports. We've been doing that for about 6 years now. And we have a Patreon, so you can check that out at patreon.com/the Kings of Sport. Sign up today and get access to bonus shows, get access to video versions of the podcast, MCU reviews sometimes, political shows. There's a lot of stuff on the Kings of Sport Patreon, including the NWA podcast, the Nubian Wrestling Advocates, featuring myself and Chris from LA. And yes, WH, I know we've got some time differences to sync up, but you have an open invitation to come on the show because despite the name, despite the title, it is not just for Nubian fans and Nubian voices to speak about their thoughts on the world of professional wrestling. We want to bring everybody into the tent. Our Latino brothers, like I said, our Asian brothers and sisters, LGBTQ community. We just want everybody to get on here and talk about this thing that we all love, this crazy business of professional wrestling. So you have an invitation to that as well, my friend. And finally, the greatest show in the world, not named Buff Talk, because I'll let you have your lane, WH. I'm not one to put down. I'm not one to hold anybody down. I'm not Hulk Hogan in WCW. I want you to get your shine too, brother. So you can do your Buff Bagwell podcast. But the greatest podcast available in the world today, of course, is the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, where each week or each month. I don't have the time or the stamina to do a rock movie every week. But each month, me and a special guest run down the filmography of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I think, those of you that are fans of The Rock, you'll love the show. Even if you don't like The Rock and you don't like his movies, you'll have a good time with the show because we have a lot of different guests. John Pollock's been on the show. Brian Mann's been on the show. A lot of different people. Andrew Thompson has been on the show. So, yeah, if you're a fan of post wrestling, if you're a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and if you're a fan of hearing this voice coming to you right now through your headphones or through your speakers, then you'll love the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, available right here on Post Wrestling.
That show's never going to end, by the way, because The Rock's just going to be making movies forever.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, if Rock stopped making movies today, I would still be doing this show until 2023. So, yeah, that's job security right there. I went to John Away, said I want to do a Rock podcast about all his movies, but I'm only going to do it once a month because that way I'll never be out of a job here at Post Wrestling. So
if you stopped right now, if Rock stopped making movies right now, so the last movie you would do would be the Hobbs and Shaw movie?
Let's say, yeah, the Hobbs and Shaw, or Jumanji Part 2, whatever the last movie is.
All right.
Yeah. If that was it, it would take us it would take me and whoever the guests were until 2023 to complete the filmography of The Rock. And here's the thing, WH, that's not even counting every movie role he's been in. We're only doing like his starring roles or a role or movies where he's a big part of the cast. So like movies like Reno 911 where he has a quick cameo, we haven't even done that yet. So I could do another 5-10 episodes just on cameos, man.
I mean, like, you could do like his appearances on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, or was it Voyager?
Yep. It was Voyager.
It was Voyager.
It was Star Trek Voyager, where he wrestled 7 of 9. We could talk about that 70s show where he played his dad. We could talk about Saturday Night Live, which he hosted. So yeah, I'm never gonna run out of material for this show.
By the way, just as a side, do you know the name in Japan of Hobbs and Shaw, like what they call it here?
No.
So like the Fast and Furious franchise is called Wild Speed. And then they just give it like different titles, like it's Wild Speed Euro Mission, Wild Speed Sky Mission, like the one where they drop the cars out of the fucking plane. That's called Sky Mission. The last movie was called Ice Break because of the fucking submarine coming out of the Antarctic, or wherever the hell the last scene is.
You sound like Call of Duty expansion packs.
It do. It's great. I love it. But so the spin-off movie is called Wild Speed Presents Super Combo. Sounds like they're putting like the Rock's the hamburger, and like Jason Statham's the side order of fries or something like that.
Oh, Super Combo, yes. That I'm surprised some restaurant hadn't hooked up a deal with that.
I have a wish, a dream guest for that particular episode. I want you to get, if you can work this out, get Benno from the British Wrestling Experience, because he is a big Fast and the Furious fan, and I've heard his thoughts about this movie. But I would love to hear you and him do an episode of the Rocket Maivia Picture Show. Maybe talk about one of the Dwayne Johnson's appearances in one of the Fast and Furious movies, because I think that would be a really great episode to hear you and Nate, you and Benno do a show together, Nate.
Oh man, these Fast and Furious movies, I just want them to become bigger and bigger on the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. So we've done the first Rock movie, or it should be out around the time you listen to this, folks. If not, things happen in life. As Vince McMahon would say, cause subject to change. But what I want to do is start small, and then with each subsequent Fast and the Furious movie I review, just add more people to the podcast, so that way by the time we get to Fast and Furious 8, I have 8 people on a show, and we can all drink Coronas and talk about family.
Oh God, you know what? I'm gonna say this before we end this episode, is that I think the inclusion of The Rock, Luke Hobbs' character, to the Fast and Furious franchise saved that franchise for me, because I hate every other character on that fucking series. I hate Dominic Toretto. This guy is so obnoxious.
You hate Paul Walker? Not Paul Walker, but Brian O'Connor.
I hate Brian O'Connor. I hate Letty. The only person I like in that, I hate Roman is the worst. I hate that guy the most. But my favorite is what's the name of Ludacris's character?
Tez.
Tez is awesome. I love Tez. I liked Han. Obviously,
I was gonna say, man, I love Han, man. Han was cool. Until they killed him.
But for me, Vin Diesel, he's just so obnoxious. As Dominic Toretto is just such an unlikable character. Family, and then how can this guy beat up people who trained in special forces? It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway,
the thing is, when The Rock came in, you're right. The Rock coming back was one of the big things that changed the franchise. The other thing was, they were screw it, we're just going to become street level Avengers now. And they don't have superpowers, but all of these people are indestructible and can get thrown from helicopters and land on the hood of a car and walk away. So I love how ridiculous these movies have gotten, and they just keep adding people and adding people.
Yeah, I think, the Justin Lin directed ones are really high quality, action movies. I didn't really like.
Oh, maybe that's Liger's next move. Maybe he'll join the Fast and Furious crew.
That's right. As Super Liger. Fast Liger, that'll be his, and he'll drive a car that looks like his bodysuit. That would be amazing. It'll be like a 1986 Toyota Supra or something with super wings, and they're all shaped in.
Has he done a lot of any movies or TVs in Japan? I know a lot of the luchadors, they kind of cross over to mainstream entertainment down in Mexico. Has Liger done any of that type of stuff in Japan?
Not really. He's not someone who would have the time to film something. I think he's done maybe one movie. I can't remember, just because it wasn't anything noteworthy. It's not like the Santo movies or anything like that. So, yeah. But Jushin Liger in a Fast and Furious movie. Okay, Wild Speed.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be
fucking great. Yeah, I think that would really work. But thank you, Nate. Thank you so much for doing this. I would love to appear on the NWA show that you do, not the one that Dave Lagana doesn't keep an eye on, and the terrible commentary on that. But I would love to appear on the Nubian Wrestling. What is it? Nubian Wrestling Advocates. Yes. Okay. I like that word better than, say, alliance or associates. So
alliance would make it feel like we're the nation of domination. Like, no, that's not what we're doing here.
It's awesome. I would love to
hear advocates.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. Like, if people follow me on Twitter and stuff, I'm very much like, an advocate of like representation and like looking at
things. Yes, because as bad, and I think I told Way this when I was on the cafe hangout during the run up to Kofi Mania, and I was like, as terrible as modern wrestling, in particular WWE, has been with portrayals of Black wrestlers, like when you look at the way Asian wrestlers have been portrayed over the years, like there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, it's still happening to this day.
Yes.
To this day. But anyways, we should wrap this up. Thank you so much for appearing on Thunderstruck. I'm gonna thank also the listeners for listening to the series up to this point as well. A lot of great feedback from everyone. And until the next episode, I will say to everyone, goodbye.